When I started my search for hearing aids, one of the first things that I looked for was a pair of invisible devices. My goal was I could find something that would go entirely in my ear canal and that people might not realize I was wearing hearing aids unless I disclosed that information to them. At the time, there actually were some devices that were pretty much entirely invisible in my ear canals. But now, years later, there are even more advanced options on the market. If you're looking for the best invisible hearing aids across care methods and budgets, this video is for you. If we haven't met yet, my name is Blake Cadwell. I'm the co-founder at soundly.com. I'm also a hearing aid wearer. And in the last year, I've tried over 50 pairs of different hearing aids to see which ones are the best on the market. In this video, we're going to focus on a very specific subset of products, and those are devices that are invisible or nearly invisible in most ear canals. I'm going to talk to you about my favorite prescription options, my favorite over-the-counter options, which are typically more affordable, and then I'm going to give you a bonus option at the end of the video, something I think most people should consider. If you like what you see in this video, I'd appreciate if you give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps our videos reach more people here on YouTube. Okay, before we dig into the best invisible hearing aids in 2025, let me just give you a quick lay of the land. So there are two basic categories of invisible hearing aids that you need to know about. The first are prescription devices that you'll get at a local clinic. Prescription products are appropriate for a wider range of hearing losses. So if you have severe or profound hearing loss, you'll probably end up with a prescription product. And they also open up the opportunity for custom mold devices, which are essentially molded to fit your specific ear canal. On the flip side, OTC devices are typically less expensive. They're shipped to your home and you use a smartphone to program them. Thankfully, over the last couple of years, there are some brands that have made some tremendous advances in the OTC space as it relates to invisible style hearing aids. So we'll talk about those in just a moment. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's jump into the list. And we're going to start with prescription hearing aids. So these are hearing aids that you get at a local doctor. We're going to start with perhaps the most interesting device on this list, and that is Phonak Lyric. Phonak Lyric is a totally unique product on the market. This tiny little yellow device goes deep inside your ear canal and then stays in there 24/7 for at least 2 to 3 months. And then you go back and you change it out again. In some ways, Phonak Lyric is kind of like wearing contact lenses inside your ears. But instead of taking them off at the end of the day, you just leave them on for a period of 2 to 3 months. It's not hard to imagine why that proposition is really attractive, especially if you're someone who's looking for invisible hearing aids. When I did my trial of Phonak Lyric, I literally could not see the product inside my ear. I could put a flashlight in there and barely see the little blue string that sits on the end of this product, but that's all I could see. And certainly no one around me would know that I was wearing hearing aids. For that reason, Phonak Lyric is a really popular product among entertainers or professionals or people who just want their hearing aids to be out of the way, set it and forget it. Now, there are some drawbacks with Phonak Lyric. The first is that you will need to change out your devices every 2 to 3 months. Most people do that at their local audiology office. Now, as of 2024, there is an update to the product where you can change out every other time at home. So in theory, you'd only need to go to the office once every 5 or 6 months if you do the changes yourself. Now, we did a full review of Phonak Lyric, which we'll link somewhere up here. I talk about the experience of wearing these hearing aids, what it felt like to have that sort of pressure ongoing in my ears, and also talk about sound quality. One interesting thing about Phonak Lyric is that it actually uses analog sound. So while most hearing aids use digital processing to take down background noise and clarify voices, Phonak Lyric actually uses analog sound, which is a much broader, fuller sound. Some people feel like it's more natural. Others feel like they don't get the support that they need in background noise situations. Certainly though, if you're after an invisible hearing aid, this is a product that you should definitely consider. It's typically provided on a subscription basis at around $4,000 a year. So it's certainly the most expensive option on this list, but also the most unique. Now, one of the first things that I wondered about Phonak Lyric is, how can I change the volume? There are clearly no buttons and there's no app that talks to the hearing aid. So what if I want to turn them up or down? And the answer is you use this simple little tool that comes along with your Phonak Lyric hearing aids, and you simply tap your devices, turns them up, turns them into sleep mode, turns them down, etc. So a really unique setup when it comes to the overall invisible hearing aid landscape. All right, our second choice for the prescription route, so again, you go to a local doctor to get these hearing aids prescribed, is Signia Silk. Now, Signia Silk is an interesting device because it's not custom molded to your ear, which means you can go in and simply buy the product and walk away with it. You can also change out the sleeves and find one that's comfortable. Makes repairs a little bit easier than if you have a custom molded option, which we'll talk about in just a second. Signia Silk also tends to be a little bit less expensive for a pair of hearing aids. Typically, you can expect to spend between $3,500 to $5,500 for a pair. That's still a lot of money for most folks, but it's less than you might pay for a custom molded device that sits inside of your ear. Some of the things that we love about Signia Silk is that it's a rechargeable device with 28 hours of battery life. It also has great sound comes from WS Audiology, which of course makes all of Signia's products and Widex products. So they have great experience in managing background noise, clarifying voices. They have this technique called split processing, which basically means they put voices on one chip inside of the hearing aids and background noise on the other chip, and they can independently manage the volume of each. I find that Signia's products overall are some of the best when it comes to bringing up soft talkers and helping me in background noise situations. Now, importantly, Signia Silk has a sister product, which we'll talk about in just a second, which looks a whole lot like this one, and that is the Sony CRE C20. Also a rechargeable and invisible option that's a little bit less expensive. We'll get into that in just a second. Now, if you choose to go into a local clinic, the final option that you'll have is to get a custom molded device. That means that when you go to the office, they will put a little bit of silicone inside of your ear, make an impression, they'll take that out, they'll send it off to the manufacturer, and your hearing aids will be made one of one for you. Now, a lot of folks like this because it means that the hearing aids can go fully into their ear comfortably and as deep as possible without kind of touching any of the bends in their ear canal. This is the most traditional approach for invisible hearing aids. My mom wore in-ear custom devices for about 20 years. Those were some of the first devices that she had. Each of the leading prescription manufacturers has their own custom devices that they make, but the one that we typically recommend that folks check out is the Starkey Signature series. That's because Starkey is really good at the process of making hearing aids very small and compact inside the ear. They're just really good at the craftsmanship that comes along with making one-of-one hearing aids. Starkey also has great features and great sound. They're considered one of the leaders in the market, but they sort of have this extra edge when it comes to the craftsmanship around making really small devices inside your ear. So if you want a custom molded device, we probably recommend you take a look at Starkey's Signature series. Okay, so those are our choices if you're going to go into a local clinic. But as you might know, going into a local clinic typically costs between $3,500 to maybe $7,000 or $8,000, depending on who you work with. It also requires multiple trips to your audiologist, and depending on where you live, that might not be possible for you. Thankfully, there's another great option on the market, and that's through the over-the-counter channel. I'm gonna talk about two of our favorite invisible products within the over-the-counter channel. But first, a little bit of background. In late 2022, the FDA made some guidelines official that allowed manufacturers to begin to produce over-the-counter hearing aids, which means you can purchase them directly online or at a local store. You can also purchase over-the-counter hearing aids directly at soundly.com. We're one of the leading independent resellers of over-the-counter hearing aids. But in general, you can purchase these, have them shipped to your home, and you use a smartphone to program the devices. Typically, that means the price that you pay is less. You have a little bit more autonomy, but you get a little bit less hands-on support. So it's a trade-off that folks have to decide for themselves. Notably, there are no custom molded devices within the over-the-counter channel. And of course, Phonak Lyric is not available in the over-the-counter channel either. Our favorite over-the-counter hearing aid in an invisible style as of early 2025 is the Sony CRE C20. I've actually got them in my ears now. And if I turn to the side, you're really not going to know that I'm wearing devices. They fit really snugly in my ear. One of the things I love about these Sony devices, they have this little curve in the product itself. If I pull it out using this little tab, you can probably see some of that curve. There's a little curve that wraps around, sort of hugs my ear canal. It just fits in there really snugly, goes in deep, and it sits comfortably for all day wear. And I spent a lot of time wearing this hearing aid, and this is also the top in-ear device that we sell on soundly.com. And my own experience and our customer feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So typically, if someone comes to us and they say, I want an over-the-counter product and I want it to be in-ear, this is the product that we recommend. Now, it's worth noting, Sony CRE C20 is made by the same group that makes Signia Silk. And if you compare the form factor of the two products, they look basically identical. They're clearly coming off the same factory line, coming from the same parent company. For me, that's a really good thing because WS Audiology, which makes Signia and Widex products, really knows how to make a comfortable hearing aid that performs well in background noise and has long-term stability. You can check out our full review of Sony CRE C20 somewhere up here. If you're looking for an in-ear alternative, you can take a look at the Eargo 7. This is a product that we've loved for a really long time, and it has a really unique form factor and design. One thing we just love about Eargo is that every finish, from the packaging to the charge case to the charge ports, is really premium. It just feels like really quality product design has been put into every angle of this product. That includes the smartphone app that you use to program your Eargo devices. Overall, they've just done a great job on design. If you're someone who likes to have a really well-designed product and you like that feel and experience, you could consider Eargo 7. When it comes to sound quality, we think Eargo 7 and Sony C20 are really similar. They're toe-to-toe. Now, Eargo 7 is quite a bit more expensive than Sony C20, but it does come with one really unique feature, which we talked to a lot of folks about, and that is these sort of pedals that sit on the end of the earpiece itself. What we find is those pedals give you this sort of floating sensation. If you're someone who really doesn't like the feeling of anything in your ears, Eargo could be a good option to try since it sort of floats in there. Now, alternatively, the C20 has that curve, which a lot of people find more comfortable for all day wear. In general, these are two really great invisible style over-the-counter options. Now, it's worth noting, as I said earlier, these products are only set up to match a mild to moderate hearing loss. The reason for that is that the FDA actually capped the amount of sound that can come out of an over-the-counter product. So it can only go up to a certain volume, and that volume will typically only treat a mild to moderate hearing loss. So if your hearing loss looks something like this, you should be fine. If instead it looks more like this, you probably want to head to a local clinic and look at some of the other options that we talked about earlier in this video. It's worth noting that if you decide to purchase Sony C20 or Eargo 7, you can do that through soundly.com and you'll get some additional perks that you won't get elsewhere. The first is that you'll get a complimentary setup call with our audiologist. You'll be pushing the buttons since you'll be using your smartphone app, but we can get on the phone with you and talk you through any of the settings that might help your sound quality be a little bit more attuned to your particular needs and hearing loss. A lot of folks can get through the process on their own, but if you get stuck, it's nice to have that fallback. The other upside to purchasing your devices through soundly.com is that hearing health is all that we think about. Unlike other big box retailers, we'll know exactly what you're asking when you ask us questions about your devices or a comparison between different products on the market if you're still trying to make a decision. All right, so we've talked about the best over-the-counter options for invisible hearing aids and the best in-clinic options for invisible hearing aids. But as I mentioned, there's one bonus option which I encourage everyone to consider, and that is to actually look at a receiver-in-canal device. Now, if you're researching for your first pair of hearing aids, you might think of behind-the-ear hearing aids or receiver-in-canal devices as these large, chunky devices that are very visible to everyone around you. In reality, I'm wearing a receiver-in-canal device now, and it tends to be sometimes even more discreet than an invisible hearing aid. I simply have this small tube that comes down against my ear, and 95% of the people that I'm with will never know that I'm wearing a hearing aid. If someone's staring directly at my ear, they might wonder, what is that small tube? Now, of course, I have longer hair, and if you have less hair, your hearing aids may be visible behind your ears. But while in-ear invisible style hearing aids lack some functionality, like Bluetooth streaming or extra microphones, receiver-in-canal devices do have those extra bits of functionality. The devices we've talked about today are great. They perform really well for folks. But if you're really interested in Bluetooth streaming, none of the devices we talked about today have Bluetooth streaming capabilities. So you might want to look at a product with a slim form factor that sits behind the ear and can still be really discreet. Something to consider. All right, that's it for our best invisible hearing aids of 2025. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and good luck with your research.